set the stage here. Let's talk about the big race in Michigan. What are the various different paths to victory for El-Sayed and for Stevens? What are you watching for?
Yeah, well, in a few hours, the map is going to start lighting up. And I think one thing to keep in mind here, so much of the vote as it comes into tonight in Michigan in this Democratic primary is going to come from the southeast part of the state, particularly right here, the state's biggest county, where its biggest city, Detroit, is. That's Wayne County, right next door, Washtenaw County, Ann Arbor, University of Michigan, and the two big bedroom suburban communities here, counties, Oakland and Macomb. Together, just these four counties, you're probably looking at about half the vote that's going to be cast in this primary tonight. I think you can expect, take a look in Washtenaw, the question there is going to be not who wins the county, but how much does El-Sayed win it by? Demographically, again, big college area, Ann Arbor, University of Michigan. This is where he's expected to do very well. Can he run up a big score right there? Meanwhile, for Stevens, I think Oakland County, her political base, into Macomb County, she wants to be doing well there. And the real wild card here is going to be Wayne County, because we say Detroit, but Wayne is also much bigger than Detroit. Wayne County, in fact, itself is 20% of all the votes that are going to be cast tonight in the primary. And there's a bit of a split there. When you get outside of Wayne, you got other cities in Wayne County like Dearborn, like Dearborn Heights, like Hamtramck. Dearborn, the first a majority Arab American city in the United States of America. You can expect in places like that, El-Sayed potentially to be posting some very big numbers. In the city of Detroit, though, Detroit itself is 75% black. And actually, El-Sayed did not do that well there when he ran for governor in 2018. Polls have suggested Stevens is doing substantially better than El-Sayed with black voters. So can Stevens run up big numbers in Detroit? But Wayne County looms as the biggest wild card in this. It's the biggest piece of the puzzle. The bad news, Kristen, is if past his prologue, Wayne is also the slowest at putting its results out there. So if this is a close race, we could be waiting late into the night for Wayne County.
Well, we are ready for all of it, Steve. Look, one of the big questions tonight is just how much momentum do these progressive candidates actually have? And progressive candidates are running in a number of different districts. So where else are you going to be watching for clues about this tonight?
Yeah, I mean, take a look here in the 7th Congressional District here tonight. This is a Democratic primary here, open nomination here. William Lawrence here, endorsed by Bernie Sanders, very much a candidate of that left-wing insurgency in the Democratic primary. This is a very competitive race. The Republican here, I can show you, Tom Barrett is a first-term incumbent. It's a very close congressional district at the presidential level. His race was very close in 2024. And Democrats, you take a look at this primary, Lawrence here has that progressive lane to himself. Bridget Brink, the former U.S. ambassador to the Ukraine, Matt Mozdem, he's endorsed by Alyssa Slotkin, the senator who used to represent this district, is that sort of establishment wing split between those two candidates, and has it opened the door for Lawrence, who is very much in line with these progressive candidates who've been posting these, sort of eyebrow-raising victories in Democratic primaries around the country? Has it opened the door for him to win the nomination in this district? And again, as I say, this is the kind of district you're talking about here. I think that's one of the themes tonight in Michigan, Kristen, that's a little bit different than these other primaries. We've seen these left-wing candidates winning primaries in deep blue districts, deep blue areas where Democrats really don't have to worry about the general election. This district, the 7th district, or the Senate race to statewide in Michigan, a Trump state, Democrats very much do have to worry about the general election there. And some of these contests could raise the question of, are they testing the limits of electability?
And it's one of the big questions we will answer in November if those progressive candidates, in fact, are victorious. And, Steve, we should say we are going to be talking to Lawrence and Mozdem coming up in just a bit.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.